Hey, all, today we're going to continue talking about angles and specifically angle pairs, like we talked about complementary, supplementary, linear pairs, and vertical angles. And today we're going to use the relationships between them to find missing angle measures. So the first thing we need to do is identify what type of angle pair relationship we have, and that's why we started with that. And so if I look at this first one here, I have these two angles, this angle that's 48 degrees and this angle that we call angle B, and they are making a right angle. And so these are a pair of complementary angles. And so what we said in the last video and what I just said kind of now is that complementary angles come together to make 90 degrees. And so I can write an equation that represents that relationship. And I really want to encourage you to write the equation, even if you don't need it for some of these, because we will get some that are a little more difficult, and we'll need the equation. And so I'm going to write that B, I'm actually going to write that the measure of angle B, that's what that says, the measure of angle B, which is what we want to find, the missing angle measure, plus 48 degrees should be equal to 90 degrees. And that represents two complementary angles should add to 90. And so now I can solve this like an equation. And the way I solve equations, I'm going to move my 48 over here. Whenever you switch the side of the equal sign, something is on, you have to switch its sign. So this 48 was a plus, and so I'm going to make it a minus. And so I'm going to end up with the measure of angle B equals 90 minus 48. And if I solve equations a little differently than you, that's fine. You solve them the way you know how. Just make sure that you're doing them correctly. And so then finally, that's not a very visible color. I can do 90 minus 48 and get 42 degrees. And so that means my missing angle is 42 degrees. Again, I really want to encourage you to establish what relationship you have first, then write an equation. So here I have two angles and they're across from each other, and so we would say that these are vertical angles. And if you look at these angles, there's no way I'm going to draw this and not have it be true. These two angles should look like they're the same size, because they are. Vertical angles are always what we call congruent. We give that a symbol, this little squiggly on top of an equal sign. These two angles are congruent. That means they are equal. So I can write a statement that says they're equal. I can say the measure of angle B is equal to 52 degrees. And actually, I don't have to do any solving at all. I know that angle B must be the same as 52 degrees. Over here, this angle B and this angle that's 58 degrees, they share a side, and together they make this straight line. Straight lines are 180 degrees. These are a linear pair. And they should add to 180 degrees. When I put them together, they make this 180 degree straight line, and so I can add them together. The measure of angle B plus 58 should equal 180. They're a linear pair. Together they make 180 degrees, so I can say they add together like this to equal 180. And now I need to solve by moving that 58 over there. Again, I do it a little differently maybe than the old school. You might do minus 58 on both sides, and that's good too. So when I move the positive 58 over, it's a minus 58, much like I have right here. And so finally I can do that subtraction, and I can get 122 degrees. So my missing angle, or angle B, is 122 degrees. So again, really encourage you to just really practice, even if these are kind of easier than ones we get to, really practice writing these equations, because that skill, that ability, repeating that process is going to help you when we get to harder ones. If we do the little things correct, then the harder problems become less hard. So let's do a couple harder problems. Here I have complementary angles again. They're complementary because they make this right angle. And so they should add to 90 degrees. So I'm going to take my two angles and add them. 47 plus 10 plus 3x. That whole angle is 10 plus 3x. And they should equal 90. And now I have an equation to solve. I don't need the parentheses here because there's a plus in front. Please do be sure when I'm solving any of these equations, it might have been a while since you've solved an equation, so please do ask for help if you need it. I'm going to combine that 47 and 10 to make 57. They're both positive. I'm going to move this 57 over. It's positive right now. I know it's positive because there's no sign in front. So when I move it over, it's going to become negative. Again, you might do minus 57 on both sides. I like to show both ways. 90 minus 57 is going to get me 33. And then finally, my last step here is to divide by 3. So there's two parts to these problems. There is some algebra involved and there's some geometry involved. Getting this equation set up, that is the geometry. The rest of it is the algebra. So if you struggle with algebra, one thing you could do is when you're doing your problems, do the geometry part first and then ask for some help with the algebra. We might have to do a little practice. Here I have a linear pair. These two things add to 180. They're a linear pair. They make this straight line together. And so I can write this equation where I just add the two angles and make them equal to 180. And that is the geometry portion of this problem. The algebra portion is for figuring out what x is. So I can take this 106 and this 4. They're both positive. I can put them together to make 110. And then I'm going to move this 110 over. And it becomes a negative 110 minus 110. And I can clean that up. 180 minus 110 is 70. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 2 to get rid of that 2 in front of the x. And find out that x is 35. And my last type of angle, here I have vertical angles. They're across from each other. Vertical angles are congruent. I'm just going to keep writing the word and the symbol because we are going to use congruent a lot the rest of the year. Congruent means that they're equal. And so I can write an equation that says that 2x, that angle that's 2x, should be equal to the angle that's 50. And hopefully you breathe a sigh of relief. This one is easier than the other two. I have to divide both sides by 2. And I'll find out that x is 25. And none of these answers are degrees. This is what x is equal to. If I want to know in degrees what the angles are equal to, I can plug x back in. So for example, I can plug in 11 right here to figure out what this angle makes. I could plug in 35 right here to figure out what this angle makes. When I plug 25 in for x in this one, I should know this angle should make 50 degrees since that one already is. But this is a unique scenario where the two angles are equal. So please stick around and answer the questions. If you do have questions, please make sure you ask. There's 2 of us here, and we would love to and are willing to help. Take your time on these. Again, start with the geometry part. If you need help with the algebra, that's okay. We're here to help you. Take your time, and good luck.